So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Luisa Pinto. I'm from Portugal. I'm an assistant professor at Prince Sultan University, located in Riyadh, in Saudi Arabia. So today, my presentation today is related with green practices. Let me try to share my presentation. So as I was saying, my presentation today is related with green practices, more specifically with green purchasing practices. So the title of my research paper is Green Purchasing Practices and Firms' Performance in Manufacturing Industry. This is the overview of my presentation. I'm going to start with the introduction and the purpose of my research, literature review. After I'll present the methods, research question, results and conclusions, and the contributions, limitations, and future research. So according to several researchers and according with Suring in 2013, organizations must address suppliers in their supply chain. So because they can create value and they can create competitive advantage. Also, according to Dubai et al. In 2020, firms must or should implement green practices because green practices can benefit the companies and also can build a competitive advantage. Based on that, so the proposal of this research paper is to investigate the relationships between green purchasing practices and companies' performance. More specifically, I will explore which are the green purchasing practices used by companies and how those green purchasing practices influence the company performance. According to several researchers, the supply chain must adapt and coordinate green initiatives. There are several green initiatives that the companies can implement, but one of the most important green initiatives is the green purchasing practices. And also we know that according to Zeleny et al. In 2012, the role of procurement has become a very significant element in increasing profits, in increasing organizations' profits. Also, Suring and Muller in 2008 suggests that suppliers, without no doubt, are a very important part of building a sustainable supply chain. According to the literature review and according to several authors, researchers, there are several green practices that companies can implement, as I told you before. So they can be classified in internal practices or in external practices. But the main goal of this research is the green purchasing practices. So taking consideration that the research questions is in this study that we want to answer is what are the green practices used by companies, and we want to find out if there is a relationship between the green purchasing practices that the companies implement and the performance. And how we do that? For that, so we use a qualitative approach, we use multiple case studies, and you use Smith structure interviews in 8 Portuguese manufacturing companies from different sectors. This is the sample. So the samples I told is composed by 8 companies from the manufacturing sector and from different sectors. Semi-structured interviews were used, so all the interviews were conducted in face-to-face interviews were conducted with the procurement manager in the 8 of the companies, and in 2 of the companies I interviewed the quality, environment and safety manager. Each interview lasts about 16-19 minutes, and each interview, of course, was taped and of course after we record and transcript all the interviews that I made. What are the results and the conclusions? So as you can see here in this table, we found out that the organizations that are using several green purchasing practices. So the cross-analysis from the individual analysis of the 8 case studies allow us to identify these green purchasing practices: supplier selection, suppliers evaluation, suppliers audit, suppliers collaboration, and green packaging and reverse logistics. So all the companies, they are using different practices for selecting and evaluating the suppliers. So this is a common practices since it is one of the requirements of the ISO 9001 standard, because of all of these companies were certified by this standard. And but the selection and the evaluation of the suppliers is made only for the first tier suppliers, for the first level. So I found out that all the companies have formal procedures to select and to evaluate the suppliers, but not all consider environment aspects when they are selecting and when they are evaluating the suppliers. So some of them also, they require that the suppliers, they have the ISO 40001, the one related with the environment, or in the case that the environmental system is not certified, they required already request to the company to do a statement of compliance with the regulations. A common practices also of all the companies is to conduct suppliers audits. Some of the companies, they are not considering the environment issues directly. So, but of course, when they are doing the audits to the suppliers, if they found out some problem related with the environment, of course, in the report that they have to do, they ask to the supplier to do an action plan to try to fix that non-compliance that they found out. And also we found out that with the exceptions of 2 companies, almost of the purchases are made to suppliers located in Portugal and in Spain. And almost of them, they have management systems certified by the ISO 9001 or the ISO 40001, or even the social responsible standard. And in all the companies, what we saw it's that the relationship with the supplier is a long-term relationship, in order, of course, to reduce uncertainty and to minimize the risk. And the environment collaboration with the suppliers were verified through a set of actions with suppliers, mainly to reduce costs and, of course, to minimize environmental impacts. Because also the legislations, the law in European Union in important is very strict. So they have to follow the legislation. Also, we found out that regarding the suppliers collaboration, there are several partnerships with the suppliers, that the main goal is also to improve the efficiency of the operations, optimize all the supply chain, and also reduce the material use to develop the value-added solutions. Of course, that actions or that partnerships that they are doing with the suppliers, of course, that will have a positive impact on the environment, of course, in the supply chains. There are several initiatives that the focal companies and the suppliers are doing according to the different companies that were interviewed. For example, some collaboration practices includes the replacement, for example, of toxics or hazard products. For example, use the returnable packaging. Also they conduct training with the suppliers, taking consideration the environment and they take in consideration also the social responsibility. We found out also that companies are committed to green packaging and reverse logistic practices also, even that we can include that in suppliers collaboration. But there are a lot of practices that they are doing regarding the green packaging and the reverse logistics. So of course that these practices depend on the sector, the value of packing in the final product cost, the transportation costs, and of course on the impact in the environment. So, and those are the green purchasing practice that we found in the companies that were studied. Taking consideration the green purchasing practices and the performance, what we found out is that all the interviews said that, of course, with no doubt, if the suppliers and implement green, if the companies they implement green purchasing practices regarding, of course, their suppliers, with no doubt the performance it is positive. So particularly in the first level suppliers. So they said that the implementation of these green practices affects the economic performance of the company, and there is a win-win relationship, since of course once again sustainable suppliers represents lower risk to the company, and of course consequently will be a better partner in maintaining a longer lasting relationship, which brings of course advantage for both for the focal company and of course for the suppliers. So conclusions, what are the green practices used by focal firms? So supplier selection, evaluation, the audits, supplier collaboration, and also green package and the reverse logistics. The other research question, it was related if there is a relationship between green purchasing practices and focal firm performance. Of course, the relationship exists. There is a win-win relationship, and this relationship is positive. Regarding the contributions, limitations, and further research, these papers can contribute to identify and to understand what are the main green purchasing practices used by companies to reduce the risk, to reduce the costs, to reduce the impact on the environment too. Limitations. One of the limitations of this research is that even that we include several industrial sectors. Of course, that we only interview, our sample is only 8 companies. So of course that the results cannot be generalized to other continents. A future research suggestions for future research is to develop a survey and collect information on a broad sample of companies to test and generalize the results. So thank you so much. So I know that in the end we will have questions and suggestions. Thank you.